Hey, how's it going? My name is Adrian Reddix, and this video is about why I think the 3.5 millimeter jack, aka the headphone jack, is still a relevant technology today. As you know, a lot of device manufacturers, especially handheld phones and the like, have gone away from the 3.5 millimeter jack. I'm going to give you my opinion on why that is. But before I do that, let's just run down a little bit of the history of the TRS or the phone connector or the audio or the headphone jack. It's old technology. It's 19th century technology. And if you ever seen those old pictures or videos of this lady with headphones on, and she would take a jack out and put it in another hole and take this one out, talk to the person, hey, where you calling? And it's just this person taking it out and doing the switching manually. That was the main popular use for TRS or the connector. TRS stands for tip, ring, sleeve. And it's how information and how it processes things through each one of these levels. And then later you have the tip, ring, sleeve. Before we had the standard 3.5, and the first one was 1/4 inch, and then you had 3.5, 2.5. But the thing about it is there was no standardization between different manufacturers. You had Western Electric, which was owned by Ma Bell, the parent company that AT&T came from. That's when there was a big monopoly bust, and they busted all those up and made AT&T and Southern Bell and all those other things. It's called Ma Bell. Western Electric had their own standard, and it came in different sizes, and they were using it for their switching networks. Also, you had the military, who also had TRS connectors for different military operations. And then you had various other manufacturers that had their own flavor. The headphone jack didn't get popularized in the consumer market until the Sony Walkman came out in 1979. The TPS-L2 was the first commercially available Walkman, and that took off like gangbusters. It's a cassette. You used, I'll put a picture of it up. It's analog technology, and it took music listening from the big stereo systems at the time, and you had to have these big speakers and mixers and all this expensive equipment to enjoy music at your house. Now you could take this Walkman and take your music with you. Now at the time, this was still the era of records and 8-tracks. So having this newer technology that you can put your music on or buy cassettes and walk around was revolutionary. Then they transitioned into CDs, and then the Walkman became an MP3 player. So that really introduced everybody to personal headphones. Before that, you still had the 1/4 inch that you would put into your mixer or your audio out and still enjoy, this analog headphone experience. So around the late 90s, early 2000s, you start seeing headphone jacks, specifically the 2.5 millimeter jack, on cell phones, and it really started getting standardized on cell phones. And as you can see, Nokia, Samsung, Apple. So when Apple decided to not put a headphone jack, a 3.5 millimeter jack, on the iPhone 7, you can see that Philip Schiller came up there and said it was a courageous thing for them to do.
It comes down to one word: courage.
What you probably do understand is when you take something away, you were so courageous that you took it away. But you know what? This problem I just made, I got a solution for you. AirPods. They're taking an already profitable device, doing a value add to it. So now I can still charge you this flagship price. And also, hey, I know you like listening to music. I know you like having hands-free when you're doing calls or something you don't want somebody to hear. I got the perfect solution for you, and it's these AirPods. And it's two reasons. One, they can get to sell you more devices. And I think eventually you'll have phones that don't have any ports, like charging or whatever. You already have cars, and we'll get to that in a moment. Cars that have wireless charging in them, like the Cadillac CT6, the Toyota Prius, The Audi A7 seem like they're ahead of the curve, maybe not ahead of the curve, but since wireless charging has come onto the most personal device that you carry with you. The second reason that enabled Apple to make the transition from wired headphones to Bluetooth headphones because in 2016 you had a new Bluetooth standard come out called 4.0, also known as Bluetooth Low Energy. Why is that important? When I used to sell phones, I used to sell phones for a authorized reseller of Verizon that may have been based in Knoxville. Two things back then on phones pre 2016 they used to use the most energy were your screen, which that's still going to use it because it emits light, and that's your biggest consumption of energy when it comes to mobile devices, phones specifically. And two, it was Bluetooth. Bluetooth was so robust because Bluetooth used to drain batteries. The two things you always tell people whenever they had complained about battery use, and it wasn't just iPhone, Samsung, Nokia, Casio, all of them, was to, first thing we told people was to turn the screen brightness down. And also the second thing was how much Bluetooth were you using? I just believe that, and as soon as Apple did it and people saw Apple's biggest profit maker is going to be that iPhone, and anything they can sell on as a value add to the iPhone. So if I can save this iPhone, it doesn't have a port on it, but I can save these AirPods that conveniently work so well with this problem that we just created, right? Other manufacturers start doing it. If you don't remember, Samsung had an ad campaign that made fun of Apple for not having a headphone jack. And then last year, whenever the latest Note came out, all those ads seemed to disappear because they realized that I can take away the headphone jack and sell more stuff. Now, it does make sense somehow. These phones are getting thinner, even though you still have a lot of them with a camera bump, you still have that thickness. You really lose a lot of real estate you could play with. Battery technology it's getting better, but chemistry is chemistry. Unless you do something major with the chemistry of batteries, then there's not much you can do as far as capacity. And you can make some improvements, but there's been no drastic improvement in batteries for a long time. So you have to make choices as far as what's important. Since Bluetooth technology got better, the 3.5 millimeter head jack just wasn't as important for telephones or cell phones. Why would the 3.5 millimeter headphone jack be important? You have plenty of states like California, Georgia, and Washington, D.C. where you can't drive and use your handset at the same time. I have 3 cars. My newest one is a 07 Ford Focus, and it has a auxiliary port where I can plug my phone up and listen to music and have that option. My 2 older cars, it's a 04 Sienna and a 03 Envoy. The 03 Sienna doesn't have any of that. So, even if I had Bluetooth or I didn't have a headphone jack, it wouldn't really matter. And the Envoy has an option for auxiliary port, but you have to go through and add a module to it, and it's not really a traditional auxiliary port. Let's say if you want to listen to your music or podcast, having the headphone jack there and having a phone that has a headphone jack, plugging it in, you don't have to worry about Bluetooth interference, which Bluetooth has gotten a lot better with this newest 5.1, and I think they just announced 5.2, so that's coming out with better connection. There's some uses for this TRS connector. You have microphones. This microphone right here that I'm using on the camera that I'm using, you'll see that it has a 3.5 millimeter jack. Computers, you'll see that on all the motherboards I've ever dealt with, still have options to have the audio and the microphone. I think nowadays a lot of them are together. So you can still use some of your older microphones and not having to upgrade to the latest, greatest. Also, audio engineers and instruments, but they usually use the 1/4 inch, MIDIs and mixers and all that. Also, going back to cameras, different surveillance cameras still come with a 3.5 jack that you can get audio, voice over IP office phones. As far as the little earpiece that you have, a lot of them still use 3.5 millimeter jack. I think that's it. Thank you guys for joining me. I do realize that one day that the 3.5 millimeter jack will be obsolete. I just don't think that day is today. And we'll be remiss to not explore it and keep it around as long as we can, but still advance and make the wireless part of our lives that much better. Thank you guys for joining me. Comment, like, subscribe, dislike. Tell me why you think the headphone jack is still relevant, or why you don't think that the headphone jack is still relevant. But thank you for joining me, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a good one.